Good morning to all. A warm welcome to all the participants on this fourth day of the ATAL FTP on sensor technology and industrial applications. We welcome you to session 10, which is entitled Morphological Characterization of Materials using TEM and SEM. Our chief guest for today, our guest speaker, Dr. R. Rajsekhar, Professor and Head of the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Kongu Engineering College, Erode, Tamil Nadu. To start with an introduction of him, he has completed his MS and PhD at IIT Kharagpur, and he has completed his postdoctoral fellowship at South Korea. He has published international journals of a count of 88 and has a citation index of 2177. He has attended 120 international conferences and published over 30 book chapters. He himself has conducted more than 16 different events corresponding to seminars, conferences, and various workshops. He is an editorial member and reviewer in two main journals under American Association of Science and Technology, and he is a reviewer for more than 25 reputed international journals. 3 PhD scholars have obtained their degrees under his supervision, and he is currently guiding 8 PhD scholars. He has a major project scheme under UGC, a project funded for rupees 11.42 lakhs. He also has a funding of 18.94 lakhs under DST SERB, and he has acted as the co-investigator in collaboration with IIT Kharagpur for the Coal India Limited for rupees 1.82 crores. He is one of the most eminent and well-renowned person in this zone, especially to the material science sector. Most of the people know him very well. We are awaiting to hear from you, sir, for the session. I kindly welcome you to present your session, sir. Thank you. You can please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, Sachin, can you able to view my screen?
Yes, sir, it is visible, sir.
Okay.
Just a minute, sir. I'll just give a small introduction. All participants kindly pin Dr. Rajsekhar is presenting so that you get an uninterrupted presentation in case someone else uses the present button unknowingly. Kindly pin Rajsekhar or presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sachin. And good morning to everyone. In this presentation, we will see how this transmission electron microscope and the scanning electron microscope helps to analyze the morphology of a material. So I'm getting into the presentation. Actually, this morphological characterization helps to analyze the physical and chemical properties of the material. In case of physical, you can say as a geometry. So we can measure the size, shape, like surface texture, porosity, dispersion of a material. And in case if you have blended two material, or you have some dissimilar materials blended together, you can analyze the phases, fracture behavior. So you are analyzing the property, so through which the broken sample can be analyzed, the fracture morphology. So all this can be analyzed with the help of scanning electron microscope, and that is normally we used to call it as SEL. Field emission scanning electron microscope, that is bit higher resolution, that is FESCL. Atomic force microscope, AFM. Then transmission electron microscope, and advanced version, that is high resolution transmission electron microscope, X-ray diffraction analysis. Then there is another advanced version, that is high resolution X-ray diffraction analysis. And concerning the morphology, in addition to that geometry or the dispersion, we can able to analyze the chemical composition also, like We can able to analyze the elemental composition, functional groups in a material, the chemical bonding that exists between two materials while blending together. And in case, apart from the additive or a fiber, if there are some foreign particle present in that material, that also we can able to analyze with the help of, say, that Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. We used to call it as FTIR, that is the abbreviated term. And we can able to analyze the percentage composition with the help of X-ray photon spectroscopy, that is XPS, then EDAX, that is energy dispersion X-ray spectroscopy. So through these morphological studies, we can correlate our technical properties. Here in this image, you can see that how high magnification help to view the dimension of particles and uniformity of particle size. So starting from lower magnification, that is 2000x, ranging to 20,000x, you can able to see the orientation of the particle. Here you couldn't able to see. You can just able to see the particles. We don't know whether what kind of particle it will be, but while slightly increasing the magnification level in 10,000x as well as 20,000x, you can able to check the particle size and how each particles are clustered together. So this one we can able to easily identify. So since being a researcher or being a project student, you will be knowing what kind of material you are using. But while analyzing that particular material at a microscopic scale, you can able to analyze how this material, how the structural morphology of the material is there. Hopefully you might have seen in the previous presentation, many of the experts, they would have given the presentation. So before going to the application part, just I will have a glance at this, some working principle of scanning electron microscopy as well as transmission electron microscopy. This scanning electron microscopy, it works in the principle of scattering of electrons from the surface of the sample. So you can see here, this is the electron source where with the help of lenses, objective lenses, it is just narrowed down to the sample. So from this electron gun, beam of electrons are bombarded towards this sample. So as you know, this electron gun, it is a thermionic electron, which will be heated up during the, which while heated up, it will give a bunch of electrons. So this one. And this emitted negatively charged electrons will be getting attracted towards the positively charged anodes here. So these electrons, they are negatively charged, which will be get attracted towards the positively charged anode. However, some part of the electron, that is, while it gets scattered, it will be attracted towards the positive charge of the anode, and some part of the electron straight away goes towards the specimen. So straight away it reaches the specimen without diversion. And because here you can see this is the sample. This is the sample. Just a minute. This is the sample, and which this sample holder is also positively charged. So the basement is also positively charged. So the negatively charged electron, which is not scattered, will directly bombard on this sample holder. So this this series of electromagnets as well as the lenses can use to target the electrons towards the specimen. So these condenser lens are also electromagnetic, which helps the electrons to firmly focuses on the specimen. So this condenser lens will help the electron to firmly focuses on the specimen. And while targeting on this one specimen here in this range, some of the electrons get through the specimen. So that means while the electrons come down, it will straight away get inside the specimen and it will transmit. It will transmit out.
Sir,
So those, yes,
sir,
please.
PPT is not visible, sir, on the screen.
So it is visible, sir. Kindly pin Dr. R. Rajsekhar.
Okay.
Search in your side the column, pin Rajsekhar R. The PPT is visible. I put it in the chat box. Kindly
Okay,
note
thank
it,
you,
sir.
thank you, sir. Thank you, thank you.
Okay. So I'm just repeating it again. Some electrons will get through the sample, so it will get directly transmitted outward. So those are called as transmitted electrons or unscattered electrons. So this kind of some minimal portion of the electrons will get transmitted. The electrons also will get reflected back. So now we can see from this arrow mark, the electrons will also get reflected back in the form of secondary electrons. Another some portion will be reflected in terms of backscattered electrons as well as X-rays. So you can see here in this image, while this electron strikes on the sample surface, some portion will get transmitted, some portion will get reflected, and major portion will get reflected, and the reflection will be in the form of secondary electrons. The secondary electrons, and just I have mentioned this one, SC, secondary electron, backscattered electron, and as well as X-rays. Now here you can see, if this is the material margin, you can see here in the surface, on the layer of the surface, if the electrons get reflected back, those are called as secondary electrons. Actually, if it comes down to the subsurface, if it comes down beneath the surface, then those electrons which again reflected back are called as backscattered electron, and which come to the at least to the middle portion of that, or the middle to the thickness of the sample, and if it is getting reflected back, those are X-rays. It means when the electron beam comes down and hits the part of the specimen, the atoms absorb the energy and gives its own electron. So the atoms present in the material absorbs the energy and gives their own electron. So this particular secondary electron, that is this secondary detector, picks up the electron, and through which only this secondary electrons we are viewing. So SEM precisely means that we are analyzing the surface morphology of the material. So it analyzes only the surface texture of the material, and that is why this backscattered electrons and this X-ray electrons are neglected, and only the secondary electrons are considered for viewing the image. In case of SEM, normally before, for example, if you are using maybe some plastic or rubber-like material, so normally they used to coat, give some gold or platinum coating through sputter coating method before this SEM examination. So it has been given for scanning purpose. Actually, this gold coating or the palladium coating will act as a conducting surface, so which will interact with the bombarding electron beam. Else, if this is a non-conducting material, there will not be any interaction between this beam as well as the material surface, and that is why precisely this gold coating or palladium coating is given before SEM examination. And in case of TEM, you can see there is no much difference between the construction. In case of TEM, only thing, the main difference is that here you will be having some samples for a thickness of even, you can use a sample that is having a thickness of 6 mm also. Here you can fix it in the sample holder. And at the same time, in this particular sample holder, you can able to place around 10 samples. Having a thickness or a height of 6 mm, you can able to place around 10 samples. But in case of TEM, you can't place a thick sample. So the thickness should be lesser than 200 mm, for which you will have a separate processing technique. In case of TEM sample preparation, you have to go for ultra microtoning. So where with the help of the material will be cut below its glass transition temperature. So for a plastic material, the glass transition temperature will be more than the room temperature. So they don't require any additional process. So with the help of a diamond cutter, they used to cut the sample within the thickness range of 200 nanometer. In case if you use a rubber sample, then in that condition, it will be flexible in nature. So they have to go beyond its below its glass transition temperature. Generally, for a rubbery material, the glass transition temperature will be below 0 degrees Celsius. It will range from -20 to -80 degrees Celsius based on the natural as well as the synthetic classification of rubbers. So at that condition, again they will go for microtoming in order to get the thickness of sample below 200 nanometer. In such condition, they will use liquid nitrogen so that based on the glass transition temperature of the material, the sensor will reduce its temperature so that the sample will be made ready. And in the specimen, actually what will happen, this is the specimen. In the specimen, heavy atoms present in this material will absorb more electrons, and the light atoms present in this material will absorb less electrons. And those light atoms that absorb less electron, from that the electrons will get transmitted through the light atoms. So heavier atoms, it will get absorbed, and also it will get transmitted also, but the absorption rate will be higher. In case of light atoms, it absorbs less electron, whereas the transmission rate of electrons from that light atoms will be heavier. You can see later on we will see some images there you can identify. For example, if there are so much dark spots in an image, or normally this 10 SEM will come in the form of black and white image. So while you are viewing the 10 image, if you find some dark black color spots, you can analyze those material that has high dense atoms, and those materials that are present in a light gray color shade, those are light dense atoms. Actually, and the final one I forgot to say, here only the transmitted electrons are accounted, whereas the secondary electrons are not accounted. That means the one that transmit from the specimen towards the fluorescence screen will be accounted, and those that are observed as well as scattered from this high dense electrons will not be accounted. And that is the only difference between this SEM and TEM, where SEM uses the backscattered electrons for scanning the surface. TEM uses the transmitted electrons for scanning the surface. So with this principle, we can able to analyze. SEM can be used for analyzing the surface morphology of the material. TEM can be used for analyzing the bulk morphology of the material. So it not only interprets or conveys the surface texture, as well as it will convey how the total morphology of the material is there. And see, these are all some of the differences. Whatever we have, I have conveyed in our schematic. This is the comparison. So, scanning electron microscopy, it is a fine and focused beam. Here it is a broad beam. And I'm just telling the main salient points. So, pre-preparation of the sample. Only thing, you can able to cut the sample with the help of knife or a scissor. But prior to examination, you have to either gold coat or palladium coat. Here, the pre-preparation involves a separate equipment that is called as ultra microtome. So again, here it is ranging from 70 to 80 nanometer. Normally for a non-conductive material, this is the range, and for another material that is metal matrix and all, you can go to a bit higher nanometer. And you can see here the magnification. At some highly sensitive SEM like Cox's make, you can go up to 50,000x, whereas in case of transmission electron microscopy, you can go to 2 million times. And this is a 3-dimensional image, and this will be a 2-dimensional image. See, these are all the comparison where you can able to easily view the difference between a SEM and a TEM. So this is a E. coli bacteria where you can just see the the dispersion of bacteria. You can able to just view that. You can confirm that this is a bacteria. But while viewing through TEM, you can see the dimension of the bacteria and as well as the thickness and what are all the inner elements that are present, you can able to view easily. So that is the main difference between the SEM and the TEM. Here you can see some spherical shaped particle, or sometimes it may be a hexagonal shape also. It has been dispersed. So just the dispersion or just the presence of a particle can be viewed with the help of SEM. But here you can't say what is the distance or the shape of the, means what is the geometry of the material and what is the distance, intergallery distance. That means the distance between two platelets that you can't able to analyze through scanning electron microscopy. So in order to analyze the intergallery spacing between two particles, or whether you want to check whether your dispersion of any additive to a material, whether it is uniform or not, you have to go for transmission electron microscopy. So with this, you can able to just confirm that the material, this additive material has been eventually dispersed. Only here there is a vacant spot, and apart from that, you can see somewhat eventual dispersion. You can able to calculate the d-spacing between one particle and the another particle, and you can also check the structural, that is the dimensional, what to say, the length of the material. So it varies. So few particles are having smaller diameter, and few are having larger diameter, where you can able to analyze the range of this diameter of the particles. And here, this one is a pollen grain, where you can see just the distribution of grains in a flower, and an individual grain you can see the thickness and some the presence of that inner elements and all, where you can analyze the what kind of content or what kind of what to say, like protein and vitamin, those kind of presence in this type of TEM images. And this is a virus where the outer structure you can able to see. We can calculate the number of grain, what kind of virus it may be. But in case of TEM, you can see how it has been adhered to the surface, and what will be the dimension of that virus you can able to analyze. Here, this is also a particle similar to this one, and here you can able to see just it is a particle. We don't know what are all the inner content in this one because it analyzes only the surface. Where here you can able to analyze the bulk form morphology of a material. See, it contains some one phase that is in a yellow shade. It contains more phases in some that violet shades. Normally, nowadays, this ImageJ, one software has come, so through which you can able to analyze the structural geometry or the dimensions of a material. So in earlier stages, maybe 10 years ago, so with the help of ruler scale, so we used to measure this one, this total line we used to measure. If you just see with the help of ruler scale, it will come around 32 mm. So the same ruler scale, even if you have expanded the sample, you can just measure this length, and correspondingly with the help of the scale, you can measure the, for example, this is an ant, for example, you are just measuring the total length. So in scale, this length is coming around 32 mm, and this length is coming around 83 mm. So for calculating the total length, so you have to divide the scale bar with this total length. That is, calculate how many scale bar length makes a specimen. That is 83 divided by this 32. It will come in the range of around something around 2.4 or 2.5 like that. So this 2.4 you will not get because mm will cancel. You will get 2.4 or 2.5. Then you have to multiply this scale bar, that is 2.5, with your answer. That is with this 100 micrometer. That means 2.4 or 2.5 into 100 micrometer, you will get 260 micrometer. So that will be the length of the sample. This is how we used to calculate in the earlier days. Now, using that ImageJ software, while you are analyzing the SEM morphology, or while you are analyzing the TEM morphology, straight away you will get this back. Just Now just we will see the difference. We have seen the main difference between SEM and TEM. Just this SEM, how it differs from FESEM. So this FESEM, it is a low voltage microscopy, and the resolution of this voltage is much better compared to SEM. This particular FESEM, it uses, the name itself defines field emission scanning electron microscopy. So this field emission scanning electron microscopy uses field emission gun, and which is more advantageous than the scanning electron microscopy, which uses tungsten gun. And there are some additional advantages, like this FESEM has a narrowing probing beam and less spot diameter compared to the thermionic emission, that is SEM, and more coherent, and energy spread will be very low. And one more thing, the main thing, this FESEM provides topographical as well as elemental information at a magnification ranging from this 10x to 3 lakh x. So the main difference between FESEM and SEM is that the target, where here we use the tungsten target, where we use a field emission target. You can see here how the images of FESEM deviates from SEM. See here, this is a sharp pore clay, where this clay in the mines cannot be, it is difficult to mine this or take out this sharp pore clay in a mine because of the presence of pores. So since there are pores inside this clay material, it contains oil and gas trapped inside the clay pores. Okay, so if you take this shallow pore clay via SEM, just you can analyze what is the what to say, whether the clay is uniformly scattered or whether there are some voids present. But in these two images, you can see that there are some voids in the clay pores. But here we couldn't able to analyze, since because all are in the, what to say, it is very difficult because all are in irregular shape, we couldn't able to analyze. And moreover, if we increase the magnification, it will give a blurring effect. In case of FESEM, here you can see the same clay pore was taken under the FESEM scanning, where you can able to analyze the pores which contains oil and gases. So in case if there are, the pore size is heavier, it is able to extract out the gases as well as oil. In case if the pore size is much lower, it is very difficult. So with this, you can able to come to a conclusion how the pores are, how the pore size varies. And here you can see the FESEM of a coated solar material. So normally they used to coat, surface coat the solar material in order to achieve a high current collector efficiency or to reduce the reflection loss. Just you can see, this has been both the surface morphology as well as the, what to say, the thickness of the material has been analyzed. These are all two separate images. For example, this portion is a separate images which conveys the surface morphology of a material after coating. This is the pure solar cell, where they have coated some this 2D granite. That is also a carbon-based nanosheet. So this 2D granite has been coated on this solar cell, where we can see that there is some change after coating due to the presence of some additional foreign material. There is some change which you can able to see, and where we can able to we can check the dimension of this material. And moreover, this one we have to check. For example, this has been the solar cell substrate has been kept in the sputter coating material for a period of 10 minutes. This may be for 20 minutes, 30, 40, and 45 minutes. So with this morphology, we can able to analyze how the material has been deposited, or how the material has been deposited with the gradual increase in time. And one more thing we have to analyze with respect to increase in coating time, whether the thickness has been increased or it remains constant. So for that, we have to give some evidence through which this solar cell, after coating, they have cut a section or a small portion has been kept in a sputter coating, and under the same parameter it has been coated. That particular morphology, they have just focused on the thickness portion. So while focusing on the thickness portion, they can able to analyze. For example, if this pure solar cell, it comes to a range of around maybe 0.2 micrometer, maybe after coating the solar cell for a period of around 10 minutes, so some material will be getting deposited on the surface. So this proves that after 10 minutes, the material has been coated to 0.45 micrometer, and with increase in coating time, you can easily analyze that the layer deposition has been gradually increased. And one more thing, you can able to also find out whether the thickness is uniform or non-uniform. Since we have adapted some standard coating method like sputter coating, here you can see that the thickness is more or less uniform. But if you have used some other coating like dip coating or spin coating, you can't get a uniformity in thickness. That will also be confirmed with the help of these kind of FESM images. And now you can see the difference between the previous one, whatever we have seen is the FESM. So this is the HR10. So while explaining the working principle of this HR10, I have told you. So the heavy dense material will absorb more electrons, and the light dense material will absorb minimum number of electrons. The rest will be getting transmitted. So one such example is this one. You can see this spherical images. These are comparatively dark compared to the background. So the background is somewhat gray, and these parts are somewhat dark in color, which proves the tin content, and the rest, the outer region or the surrounded region, which is which is like a screen, it shows the carbon atoms. And moreover, in case of TEM, you can able to calculate the intergallery spacing. For example, this is cobalt and this is cobalt oxide. So you can able to calculate the intergallery spacing. Okay, in case of cobalt, it comes around 0.19 nanometer. And in case of cobalt oxide, it has shifted from 0.19 to 0.26 nanometer. So it implies that this oxygen atom has been entrapped in between the cobalt galleries. That is why, due to entrapment of some oxygen atom, it has been increased. And here also you can view. Just 10 give you, this is this one, that 2D gamete. Just with the help of TEM, you can able to analyze the particle. That is, some particle is present on some layer. And this is also a TEM image where you can just roughly analyze the particle size. Okay, but in case of HR10, the same material has been taken under subjected to HR10, where you can able to analyze the spacing between one particle and another particle. Suppose if I magnify this particular TEM image, it will give a blurring effect. I couldn't able to accurately measure the distance between one platelet and another platelet. That will be possible in case of HR10. And I will just tell you before going to this application, I will tell you the main difference. The main difference between TEM and HR10 is that HR10 uses both transmitted as well as scattered beams, whereas in case of TEM, it uses only the transmitted electrons. In case of SEM and FESEM, it uses only the backscattered electrons. But in case of HR10, it utilizes both the transmission as well as the scattered beam. That will create an interference image where TEM analysis couldn't. So this interference image can be achieved only while considering both the transmitted as well as the scattered electrons. The scattered electrons will be the backscattered as well as the secondary electrons. So all clubbed together, you will get a good interface in case of HR10. And together, I will just have a little comparison between the magnification and resolutions of SEM, FESEM, TEM and HR10. SEM will have a magnification of 1 lakh x. Just a minute. and it is a magnification of around 1 lakh x and having a resolution of 1 to 20 nanometer. In case of FESEM, it is little higher than the SEM. So it ranges, the magnification can be ranged up to 3 lakh x and the resolution will be below 1 nanometer. It can go up to below maybe 0.8 like that. It can come below 1 nanometer. In HR10, it can goes to a magnification of 1.5 billion, ranging to a resolution of 0.2 nanometer. And in case of HR10, it is slightly higher magnification with higher resolution, where HR10 can go up to 2 million magnification with a resolution of 0.05 nanometer. And moreover, this HR10 is preferred for nanoscale particles. So mainly the people working on physics and chemistry and materials background, they will be using this HR10 highly. Now we will relate how this morphological characterization, how can we correlate these properties or whatever may be, it can be a mechanical property or it can be a thermal property, gas barrier property, whatever it may be, how to relate your technical properties with the help of morphological characterization. Just a minute. Yeah, you can see here, normally you people, few of you people will be doing PhD in the field of maybe polymer composite, where you will be using some natural fiber. Just you can imagine with this one. For example, normally those who are doing research on composite material, whether it is a synthetic fiber or a natural fiber, they used to surface treat. So normally, if it is a natural fiber, you used to treat with some chemicals. The main intention of treating those natural fiber with chemical is that when we treat those fiber with chemical, ultimately the properties will decrease, because during chemical interaction, some cellulose or hemicellulose will lose out. So at that condition, the property of the fiber will decrease. But even though we are doing the chemical treatment in order to have a good bonding between the fiber as well as the matrix. Here you can see what is going to happen. This is a pure fiber. Just imagine this is a pure fiber, single fiber. And this particular fiber has been treated in a chemical like sodium hydroxide or potassium permanganate. That means diluted chemical for a period of around 20 minutes or half an hour. So you can see the surface morphology of a pure fiber and a surface treated fiber after for about 30 minutes. So you can see some changes in the surface. So while looking into for example, if you look into the FESEM image, so this will be the surface of the bulk of the pure fiber, and this will be the surface of the treated fiber. And now we can see there are some minute pores present after chemical treatment. So this implies that some of the hemicellulose or cellulose content from the fiber has been eliminated due to chemical treatment. So though the property of this treated fiber will decrease compared to the untreated fiber, but however, due to the presence of pore, what will happen? Ultimately, this fiber you are going to mix with the plastic material. That too, this natural fiber you will be mixing with some thermoset plastic material, which will be in the liquid form at the initial stage. So before you mix hardener into the material, it will be present in the form of liquid. So while adding this kind of fiber into the resin, what will happen? The resin, it will be in the liquid state initially before adding hardener. So that liquid resin will get penetrate into the gaps or the voids of the fiber. So after that, what you will do, you will be adding the hardener. So the liquid that has entered into this fiber surface will get slowly solidified. So once if the material get completely solidified, what will happen? This fiber will strongly adhere to the surface of the material. So there will be a strong interfacial bonding with this fiber and the added material, where that particular interfacial bonding will not be there in case of untreated fiber. So that is why even though the property marginally decreases after chemical treatment, while you add this fiber into a composite material, you are getting better property for the treated fiber. In case of the untreated fiber, you are losing the properties. So those increase in property are you are confirming the surface treatment of the fiber, where you can able to prove that I have treated the fiber with the help of these kind of morphological images. And here we can see the mechanical properties. So normally this is the dumbbell shaped. This may be a elastomer, that is rubber or a plastic, where you have elongated the sample, and at a certain stage this got broken up. So this reading only, nowadays it is coming in a digital form where you can able to tabulate the tensile strength, elongation at break, and tear strength. See, you are getting the value and you are tabulating here. If you show this image and if you show this values and all, no one will believe. Normally, this will be helpful for a normal, industrial purpose. But while coming into research or some academic work, this will not, none of them will agree these results, because these results can be easily fabricated with the help of many number of literature. If you take around 10 to 15 literatures on the same material, for example, here I have considered I have used some material like polyethylene terephthalate, the one we are using for PET bottle. I have used some material and I have used some particle, and I am saying that the pure material is giving some tensile strength of around 1.5 megapascal, and I have added some material where the tensile strength has been gradually increased from 1.5 to, for example, 15 megapascal. So this value, if I check around 20 papers based on polyethylene terephthalate or any other plastic material, that if I put an average, I can able to tabulate this graphical plot. And this one, just mere testing one sample, I can say that I have done some 5 to 10 samples and I have tabulated the average of all those values. But none of the research paper will agree this one. So in order to confirm that this property has been increased due to the addition of some particle or some fiber, I have to prove the same with the scanning electron microscope. Just imagine this one, this particular image refers to the pure material. Okay, and this second image, it refers to, you can consider any one of the material under this division. For example, you consider this one ICCB. So this is the surface morphology which I have taken through SEM. Just a minute. Okay, now you see, even if for example, you have used some fiber here, or you have used some particle here. So this pure material does not contain any particle. And while examining this tensile strength, what will happen? Normally, the fracture will initiate on the middle portion. In that middle portion, keep on stretching the material. What will happen? That void or that fracture will initiate and it will propagate. Since there are no particle, there will not be any tortuous path, that is complex path. So for example, if it is there, if the void initiation is at the center, so keep on stretching the material, what will happen? The void will, so the fracture, the initiation, the propagation will expand. So it will not have any tortuous path, it will be a plain surface since there are no fiber or a particle. But while you consider the second part, you can see here it is a cluster of so many complex and tortuous paths. It means that you have added some fiber, you have added some particle, where while if the crack is initiated at one particular end, what will happen? It will keep on propagating. While it gets propagated, what will happen? It is having some fiber or particle in between the matrix path. So what will happen ultimately? So it will not penetrate towards the particle or towards the fiber. It has to get into the boundaries of the fiber as well as the particle. So based on the content of fiber or the particle you add into a material, what will happen? That much particle content will be present in the material. So while this crack is initiating, it will go towards the particle part where it couldn't able to penetrate, and it will get towards the crack will surrounds the boundary region of the particle as well as the fiber, and ultimately it will end up with a fracture. So based on the distribution of the particle as well as the fiber, you will get a complex part. So just without seeing this image, just by seeing the same images, you can be able to tell that this particular image will give a higher property than this one. Okay, so like this, if you are presenting some graph, this should be correlated with this morphological properties. And see this one. For example, you are going to prepare a gas barrier tank. Okay, for example, oxygen gas barrier tank you are going to prepare. So for which the main parameter which we take is that particular material should have higher gas permeability. So for example, I have measured the gas permeability of a pure material. You can take any plastic material, or you can take any metal material. So if it is a neat material that does not contain any particle or fiber, this will be the morphology of the material. Okay, while I am passing the gas inside, the gas will transmit and it will come outward easily. So for example, for a neat matrix, I am getting a value of around 0.8. So what I have done, in order to increase the gas barrier property of this particular material, either it may be a polymer or a metal, what I have done, I have added some appropriate nanoparticle. Okay, so this decrease in gas permeability implies that I have increased the content of nanoparticle starting from IC to this ICCB. For example, this contains 1 weight percentage of nanoparticle. This may contain around 10 weight percentage of nanoparticle. So this image I can able to easily draw without sparing the sample and even without testing this gas permeability test. With the help of existing literatures, for example 50 to 20 literature, I can take an average value where I will not get into the plagiarism issue also. But if I show only this graph, none of them will agree, especially the journal will reject my paper. So whatever I have shown in this schematic representation, you can able to easily analyze. This is the particle content in a material where while transmitting a gas, it will follow a tortuous path, and that is why the gas barrier property has been increased. This I have drawn with the help of some software. This I have to prove with the help of morphological study. Then only they will confirm that I have originally prepared a material and I have done the gas barrier permeability test. So instead of simply showing this kind of gas barrier property or permeability coefficient graph, I have to show or I have to correlate this graph with the TEM image. Now we can see this is the TEM image of a particle, for example, inside a polymer matrix. Just with the help of this particular image, I can justify the obtained result. So here you can see there are many line-like things. This implies that high dense atoms, that is the nanoparticle, and the background screen, that is the pale gray, implies the surrounded matrix. Okay, let us see. In this case, you may be using this particular material for a projector, like polyethylene terephthalate. What I am doing, in order to create thin films, that means I am going to deposit some films, some layers on this polyethylene terephthalate substrate, for which initially I am going to treat the material, because you might have seen that OHP sheet. This OHP sheet, the surface of the sheet will be highly smoother, and if it is smoother, you can't able to layer any material on this particular sheet, because initially it will be in wet condition. At that particular condition, the another material, opponent material, will be deposited on this bed sheet, and once that upper layer, if it gets dried up, it will be peeled out, because the surface of the sheet will be much smoother. So for example, I am treating this polyethylene terephthalate with some solution like HCl. Okay, in order to create some roughness in the surface. So mere just I am telling if I'm telling the parameters like I have done this treatment for around 45 minutes, and I am specifying the temperature for about 60 degree, none of them will agree. I have to show how the morphology of this pit surface has been changed after surface treatment. So this is an evidence for that. So here you can see this is the pure pit substrate after examination, and this is the same substrate after 60 minutes of dipping into a chemical. So after trying both the substrate, I have measured this morphology, that is FESCM morphology, where you can see this substrate after treatment, it has become highly rough, whereas the untreated one is much smoother. So through this, we can able to prove that the layering material, that is the material which we are going to deposit on the pit substrate, will have a higher interfacial bonding between the substrate as well as the deposited layer. So like this mere experimental results, you can correlate this experimental results with the help of morphological results. And now you see here, this is an extension of this work. This pit substrate, what I have done, I have coated some materials. For example, if this is a pure pit substrate, and the thickness of this substrate while measuring on the dial gauge, it comes around 120 micrometer. What I have done, I have keep on coating the material, whatever the coating method it may be, and just keep on coating the material. This is one bilayer, that is 2 layers, 4 layer, 8, 16, 24 and 32. You can see here from 120 micrometer, that is the thickness of the base substrate. What happens? If I keep on coating the layer, the thickness has been gradually increased. So this is the measurement that I have done via dial gauge. So this measurement without doing or without preparing the coating, I can able to do. Only thing, I have to correlate this particular thickness obtained from the dial gauge with the help of some morphological images. You see here, this is a cut section of that polyethylene terephthalate, where this background implies the thickness of this polyethylene terephthalate substrate, and this 17.3 micrometer you can relate to the coating of some layer. This 17.3 you have to correlate with this value. You can see here, this is a cluster of layers where you can see some layer it will be around 135 micrometer and one layer will be 140 micrometer. If you maximize the image, one particular layer thickness, you will get a value of around 137.3 micrometer, which you can correlate with the morphological image. Then only it is a proof that you have done the sample and you have really coated the material. And here you see, this is a proof. This is a coated insert where this is a pure, just a minute. This is a pure substrate where I have coated 3 layers, TiCN, TiAlN and WCC, that is tungsten carbide. See, this has been, here we don't have the coating facility in the nearby vicinity. So this has been coated by some commercial industrial people. With the help of this material, this insert, we have done the machining. We have, normally if you do a machining for a coated material, for a control set or a comparison, you will do the same machining parameter for the uncoated substrate also. Then only you can analyze how far and what is the performance of improvement after coating. In that condition, what you will do, ultimately the coated material or the coated tool insert will give higher performance in terms of wear as well as frictional characteristics compared to the uncoated tool insert. But you have to prove that this particular material has been coated and for a particular thickness. With the help of proof only you can able to correlate the performance of the machining parameters. For example, here you see, this is a rough image since because at that time we have only the SEM facility, we have tried to make this one. Yes? Yes, please. Yes, sir. You want to convey something, sir? Yes, sir.
PPT is not visible, sir.
Sir, it is visible, sir.
Sir, is it visible now?
PPT is not visible, sir. So PPT is visible,
Sachin? Sachin, is there any problem?
Visible.
So no, sir. The
Presentation is not visible.
Yadav, please.
No, visible.
Professor Yadav, there are actually two presentations which
No,
is
I am
done by
able to
Professor
see part of the program.
Sachin, one thing we can do.
Sir.
Sachin, I think you have the PPT with you, right?
Yes, sir.
In case if he is having some problem, we can share with him.
Okay, sir. We'll just try once again, sir.
Okay.
Professor YPK Raghava, sir. Can you hear me, sir? Professor Raghava, there are actually two presentations from Rajsekhar, sir. Through one which he is speaking and the other one which he is presenting in. So please click the presentation icon and then pin it. Then you'll be able to view the slides. Professor Raghava, can you hear me?
Visible, sir. Continue, sir.
So the slides are
Okay.
visible, sir. You can please carry.
Thank you. So this particular tool insert we have cut with the help of Wirecut EDM, and we have analyzed this cross section with the help of SEM. At a later point of time, we have viewed the same cross section with the help of FESEM, where we have got a clarity image. And that particular image I couldn't able to show you now because the paper is still under process. You can see here, this is a rough examination. Sachin, shall I continue?
So please continue, sir. There's a small insertion through one of
You can see here, you can have a rough check that some particle or some material has been deposited on this tool insert. So these kind of morphological images you have to correlate with the end application of your material. And here you can see this is an XRD analysis. For example, this is a pure particle. I have told you regarding the intergallery spacing, that is the spacing between the one and another particle, the distance between two particles. If I take a pure particle, it is having a distance of 2.42 nanometer. So this particular particle I have added into a material. What happens if the distance between two particles is 2.42 nanometer? If I add this particle into a material, what will happen? Ultimately, the molecules, the polymer chains or the material will get penetrated in between the two particles. So ultimately what happened? The intergallery spacing or the respacing of the two particles will get increased from 2.42 nanometer to 3.88 nanometer. So this is an XRD analysis. So this is a morphological analysis where you can able to correlate one morphological analysis with another one. So this is via a graphical plot. This graphical plot can be compared with a TEM image. You can see here these are all some nanoparticle which has been embedded into a matrix. So while embedding this nanoparticle into a matrix, what happens? Those matrix material will get penetrated in between the particle. You can see here, this 3.8 can be correlated to the obtained graphical plot. Okay, normally nowadays XRD plot alone will not justify your answer. You have to correlate your XRD plot with some high resolution morphological analysis. It may be HR10, it may be FESEM, or it may be AFM, whatever it may be. Ultimately, you have to get a clear view. Okay. If you have queries, you can ask me. So this is how this morphological instruments will be helpful for the research purpose.
Participants, if you have any queries, you can kindly ask.
Sir, in your earlier presentation, you mentioned that TEM can be able to measure the thickness of the particle. When you
Thickness
compare with
TEM
TEM and SEM, you mentioned that TEM can able to measure the
Sir,
thickness?
no, sir. No, sir. TEM we can't able to measure the thickness, sir. It will give the surface texture, means that the bulk morphology of the material. Where SEM we can able to measure the thickness.
Okay, okay, thank you. Mhm.
Okay, sir. Only SEM and FESEM we can use for measuring the thickness.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Sir, one query,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
If you scan microorganisms and natural fibers, what kind of things?
Sachin, your voice is not audible.
Is it audible now, sir?
Yeah, it is audible.
So while scanning under TEM, SEM or HRTEM, which uses high intensity electrons as its principle.
Okay.
So when we scan microorganisms or natural fibers, does it affect the inherent properties of such particles? Because due to the high intensity of the electrons, will they be affected?
Yeah. Sometimes it will affect. Normally, it happens in case of some flexible samples. Normally, for rubbers and all, it will affect sometimes due to high intensity. That time, they will do some modification to arrest that one. Mainly, it will affect rubber samples. Apart from that, fibers and plastics as well as metals, there is no issue. You can proceed with that. And nowadays, some new technology has come where there will not be any impact on even rubber sample also.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Shall we conclude the session, sir? Any other queries, participants? Okay. So thank you very much, Dr. Rajsekhar, for your valuable session.
Thank you, Sachin.
It was one of the most informative sessions. It was also mentioned in the chat box by one of the participants. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for giving the opportunity. I thank the management, head of your institution, head of the department, as well as Mr. Sachin, as well as the other faculty coordinators for giving me a chance to present in this FDP, as well as the AICTE for sponsoring this FDP, as well as giving me a chance.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.